In this video, our Muslim brother here was talking about the difference between Islam and Arab culture. There was one specific thing that he highlighted that I would like to expound upon, so here are some clips from his video.
My little cousin, right, mind you, he's a little boy. He's in like third grade. He goes to a predominantly, Arab Islamic school, right? So boom. A lot of the things that he's taught and a lot of things that he's, experiencing, so it's cultural. So me and my little brothers, we did this as a joke, right? I'm like, yo, look, I'm about to ask him, if he think he black, so I could just show, like, I don't want to show people, I don't want to show my siblings, like, yo, like, this is real. So I ask him, I say, yo, little bro, like, you black or white? Mind you, he's yellow, but he's black. Both his parents is black. I'm like, yo, little bro, you black or white? He said, I'm not black, I'm Arab. Me and my little brothers do a little face like what? But it just goes to show you, like, this is what happens when you aren't really told about who you are, bro. It's crazy. But, he's young, but mind you, they're grown adults are trying to appropriate in their culture. Imagine. Be proud of who you are, wherever you're from. Just be proud of who you are and don't try to appropriate. You don't have to appropriate their culture to be a good Muslim. You don't. You can be yourself.
Now, of course, what he's saying is true. Islam is the Quran and Sunnah. Islam is for all people of all different cultures. Of course, there is some overlap because the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was an Arab, spoke the Arabic language. The Quran is in the Arabic language. However, it is important to differentiate between things that are just cultural versus things that actually are from the religion, and to not have this sort of arrogance about our cultures, but rather to, just speak the truth. If you're from a certain background or culture, like, it is what it is. You don't have to appropriate. You don't have to act like you're something you're not, because what makes somebody better than somebody else is their taqwa. It's their piety. It's their righteousness. It's not their culture or where they come from. With that said, I more so wanted to focus on the story that he told about his cousin who's in third grade and attends Islamic school, because that is my field, is Islamic education. We're trying to start an Islamic school called Straight Path Academy, and I appreciate him sharing his experience, and I'd like to share my experience as well, inshallah. Now, I've been Muslim over 15 years. I've been all over the United States, and I would say that the biggest masajid and Islamic centers that I've been to have always been extremely diverse. There are Arabs, there are people from the Indian subcontinent, there are people from Africa, there are people from Europe, and there are white, black, Latino Americans as well. Also, the Islamic school where I taught, they would have a yearly cultural fest where all of the different students who are from different ethnicities, they would celebrate their cultures and they would inform others about it. And it would usually boil down to three main things: the way that they dress, the food that they eat, and maybe aspects of the language. And they would come together and celebrate, because these are signs from Allah that Allah created us to speak different tongues, have different cultures, and as long as it is within the confines of Islam, these are things that we can enjoy and celebrate. However, I think a very important thing to highlight is the fact that many of these children, when they're talking about coming from an Arab background, Indonesian, African, European, wherever it is, what I'm finding to be the case is that they're really talking about their parents, right? Their parents come from one of these countries. Maybe their parents, English is their second language. Maybe signs of their culture are still very heavily on them. However, all these kids are growing up American. English is their first language. They're all into the same things. They all dress in a similar way. They're all influenced by this environment that they're growing up with here. And I'll just use myself as an example. My paternal grandmother was born and raised in Edinburgh, Scotland. She was a very proud Scottish woman till the day that she died. She maintained her thick Scottish accent, her Scottish culture. I remember growing up, sometimes they would have certain Scottish festivals where many people who come from that background would come together and celebrate their culture and maintain certain ties. But, today, after, she passed away, her generation, by and large, passed away. They stopped doing that cultural fair. And her son, my father, was also born in Edinburgh, Scotland, but he grew up in America. He doesn't have the accent. He did have somewhat of an attachment to Scotland, and he would wear shirts that had, Scotland written on it. And when he was young, he would visit every summer, and he had an attachment. But then you go down to me, I acknowledge and appreciate and respect and celebrate anything that is halal from any sort of culture that I come from. However, I grew up in America. I'm an American. Whenever your parents move to another country, and wherever their children are growing up, whoever they're around, whatever they're taught, whatever they're surrounded by, that is going to become their culture. It's just bound to happen. And that's what we see happening to the Muslim children. And this is why it's very important that we raise our children in good, proper Islamic schools, good, proper Muslim communities where our foundation is the Quran and Sunnah. Because them growing up here, they're going to adopt the culture here. And if they can't differentiate between good aspects of that culture versus bad aspects, if they can't differentiate between what comes from Islam and what we believe and what brings us together and unites us and is correct, if they can't differentiate that from all of the things that are incorrect and un-Islamic and haram and detrimental and evil, we have a serious problem. So in this story where he mentions how his cousin said that he was an Arab, it reminded me of two things that just show how innocent and impressionable kids are. My mother was an elementary school teacher for 20 years. When I was in college, a friend of mine and myself, we went to volunteer at my mother's school and, kind of mentor the kids during recess, play kickball with them, that sort of thing. So I am a white American, my mother's a white American, and my friend is a black American. So when we went and we showed up at recess for the first day, there was a bunch of kids who were like, well, which one of you is Miss Lipham's son? And me and my friend, we looked at each other like, I wasn't Muslim yet, but mashallah, like that is, it's heartwarming because it's how innocent these kids are. Like they're not looking at us like, okay, he's white, he's black, Miss Lipham's white, so of course he's the son. They're not even thinking that. They can see that we're different colors, obviously, but they're just not thinking that way. Another experience that comes to mind was with a white American boy who was in kindergarten or first grade at the time, and it was Black History Month. So he was learning about all of these, like heroic Black American figures throughout history. And when he was telling me about them, he said, when I grow up, I want to be a Black History Month person. The point being is like, unless you teach kids and you're involved with kids or you have kids yourself, we forget, like we can't even register how impressionable they are. So when that's the case, if we don't do a good job raising them properly, according to Islam, and really teaching them the truth about these different things, then obviously they're going to get it from somewhere else. And the chances are, if there's not a conscious effort to actually keep them on that straight path, they're going to be led astray. So I think it's really important for us to think about how much of a melting pot America actually is. And if we don't prioritize our children growing up upon Islam around each other, regardless of what culture their parents might come from or their grandparents might come from, then they are really in danger of being led astray. Allah surely knows best. If you would like to support our establishing Straight Path Academy, please check out straightpathacademy.com. JazakumAllahukhairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.